Before we get too far, to make this thing go more smoothly, do we want to stipulate that the objections all are there and we won't be interrupting?
Right, we can make that stipulation that all objections that could be made are hereby made.
To any and all questions.
To any and all questions, yeah. Except for privilege, and privilege you guys gotta assert it if
Well,
it
in
comes
that case, we would tell her not to answer. So.
Right. Right. Okay, have you ever gone by any other names?
Becky. And then my maiden name is Price. Price.
Where do you currently work?
For the Department of Child Safety in our Child Welfare Training Institute.
Child Welfare Training Institute, what is that?
That is essentially the training department within the Department of Child Safety, or the training unit within the Department of Child Safety.
So it's not an independent entity, it's actually a subpart of DCS?
Correct.
And DCS is a subpart of the state of Arizona?
Correct.
Am I correct that you are here today to testify as the person most knowledgeable on behalf of Arizona's, what do you call it, Department of Child Safety?
Correct.
Yeah, Arizona's Department of Child Safety with respect to training.
Yes.
And you understand that when you're designated as the person most knowledgeable by the state of Arizona's Department of Child Safety, that you're here today to speak on behalf of the agency as the voice of the agency, correct?
Correct.
Let's go with a little bit of background first. Do you have a college degree?
I do.
And what is it? From where?
I have a Bachelor's of Science in Psychology from Northern Arizona University. I have a Master's of Education in Counseling with an emphasis in Human Relations. And I'm currently in my first year at Arizona State University pursuing a Master's of Social Work.
Okay, one thing I would ask you, because you notice that she's trying to type down everything that we say, and you talk really fast.
I have been told.
So I'm going to need to know what the first master's was. When did you obtain your BS in psychology?
In 2003. May of 2003.
And then you said May of 2003?
Correct.
And then your master's in education counseling, when did you receive that?
December of 2004.
And I'm sorry, was that a MS, an MA? What was that?
An MED.
MED. Okay. What does that mean, MED? What's that
Master's of Education.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. And I'm sorry, you said that was 2004.
December of 2004.
Okay. And then the one at ASU, the Master's in Social Work.
I'm about 1 week away from finishing my first year.
Oh, okay. So that's the one you're working on.
I'm currently, yes. I'm a current student.
Okay. Do you hold any professional licenses or certifications?
In training, I'm a certified trainer, but that's
What does that mean?
that I went through training. It was given to me at the time through TDA, Talent Development, or it was a division within DCS.
Okay,
But that's it.
So you went through a training program with DCS to become a trainer.
Correct.
Okay, and that when you say you're certified trainer, you were certified by DCS to train DCS employees?
By DES, correct.
Or DES. What's DES?
Department of Economic Security.
Okay, so that happened before the changeover in the
Correct.
names and all that.
Also, kind of wait till he's done, so she'll just get one person talking.
Sure.
When did you receive your certification as a trainer?
2013.
You know what? Can we hold on a second? Is that noise getting picked up and everything on the mic? All right, I'm going to get more opportunity. We've got to be doing that stuff somewhere else.
Shall we go off the record?
Yes.
We are back on the record. Time on the video monitor is 9:36 a.m.
Okay, sorry about that little interruption. To backtrack just a little bit, you became a certified trainer in 2013, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And again, that was a certification. Well, let me ask it this way. What was the scope of the certification? What were you certified in? Was it specific or just training?
Just training.
Okay. And again, that was to train other DES, at the time it was DES workers about how to do their jobs?
Correct.
Okay. And then at some point there was a changeover from DES to DCS, right?
Correct.
When did that happen?
2015, I believe.
Okay. And your certification from DES, is that still valid and in force and everything with DCS?
Yes.
So they recognize you still as a certified trainer?
Yes.
Okay. When did you first start with the agency?
In January of 2006.
What position?
I started off in case management as an ongoing specialist.
And just briefly, what were your job duties as an ongoing specialist in case management?
To oversee cases that had gone to dependency, provide services, coordinate referrals, make recommendations in regards to the family and case planning.
In that capacity, I think I know generally how the flow goes, but you're sort of at a second stage in the proceeding, right? You don't have anything to do with the initial, at least at that point in time, didn't have anything to do with the initial investigation or seizure of the child, correct?
Correct.
Okay. What you would do is once a dependency case was moving forward, then you would provide things like family reunification services, monitoring services, things like that.
Yes.
Okay. Or you wouldn't necessarily provide, you would make arrangements for schedule, things like that, right?
Right.
Okay. How long were you a ongoing specialist?
A little over 7 years.
So that would have brought us, like 2013?
Correct.
And then in 2013, what happened?
I became a trainer with CWTI,
With what?
Child Welfare Training Institute.
Oh, and you called it CWTI?
Correct.
Okay. This certification program, you had to get trained to be a trainer, right?
Correct.
How long was that?
It was there. I did an initial 3 days of training, then there was another 4 days of training, and then a follow-up observation afterwards to ensure that I was doing what I was supposed to do as a trainer, and that's when I got the certification.
Okay. And this training program to become a trainer, what did that entail exactly? There's 7 days of instruction, I get that, but instruction on what?
On adult learning theory, classroom management techniques, time management, how to follow instructor guides, adhere to curriculum, some on curriculum design.
Okay, and then the follow-up observation, that was somebody sort of shadowing you during training sessions to make sure that you essentially adhered to your training.
Correct.
Okay. As part of that training or the curriculum to become a certified trainer, did you cover any of the specific subject matter of the training that you would be giving?
No.
Okay, so it was just techniques about how to teach people, essentially.
Correct.
Okay. And you still hold that same position today?
Yes.
Okay. And what is your specific title?
Training Officer 2.
And how does that go in terms of gradations? Does it go Training Officer 1, 2, 3, or does it go 3, 2, 1, or how does that go?
1, 2, 3. 3 being my supervisor.
Okay, got it. At some point in time, were you a training officer level 1?
Yes.
For how long?
Oh gosh. I couldn't say precisely, approximately 2 years.
So till about 2015 or so.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Okay. So what kind of trainings do you provide?
A lot. I train on a general introduction of child welfare, culture, trauma-informed practice, and secondary trauma.
Slow down a little
Sure.
bit. And you said trauma-informed practice?
Correct.
If I could spell, that would help.
Secondary trauma.
Okay.
Assessment of safety and risk, which would also include protective action plans and safety plans. I train on,
Hold on.
sure,
You said protective action plans and safety plans?
correct.
Okay. And then the next one?
Ethics, grieving, placement, family engagement, partnering with foster parents. I train an overview of our Fostering Sustainable Connections program.
Okay, what was that again?
An overview of the Fostering Sustainable Connections intervention program.
That doesn't have anything to do with foster care, right? That's developing connections with clients.
It's a new program. It's geared at finding and discovering more of the natural support networks for children and establishing and maintaining those networks for them.
Okay.
I also do refreshers in the field, primarily on the safety and risk assessment. And I previously was a child's trainer as well. And so I trained portions of our child's is our computer program that we use for documentation purposes and trained components of that. I don't know if you want those specific components or.
You said that it's somehow related to documentation.
Correct.
Did you train on components relative to documentation requirements
Yes.
in Childs? Okay, so yeah, then go ahead and tell me what those were.
So the ones that I was specifically responsible for was case planning. Gosh, it's been a while. Case notes, reassessments, which is our continuous CSRA or continuous child safety and risk assessment.
Okay.
What are called our special rate windows. So it's assessment of child need, essentially.
What'd you call it? Special rate windows?
Correct. So it's essentially documenting any special needs a child might have as far as medical needs, educational needs, behavioral health or mental health needs.
And is it called the special rates window because there's different levels of funding that are available depending on the needs of the child?
Correct.
Okay. And those different levels of funding, is that funding that the state gets from the federal government, if you know?
Well, I know it's related to that, but I don't know specifics.
Okay, so is that pretty much it in terms of what you do training on in Childs?
Yeah, I'm sure I'm missing something, but
Right. Right. You didn't know you're going to come here today and have like a detailed quiz about what you do, right?
and a lot of other things I'm sure I'm forgetting.
Right. As they may or may not come up as we're going through the day, but if something comes up and it applies to, help you answer any of my questions, just throw it out there. That's fine.
Okay.
I may ask you like which category that falls under, because I have a lot of categories listed here, but as things do come up, and as that happens, just feel free to pop it out there and let us know about it.
Sure.
Okay, so as far as you know, sitting here right now, does that pretty much cover everything you train on in childs?
That I previously did, yes.
So you no longer train on childs?
Correct.
Okay. When did you, well, let me ask you, in relation to all of these different training subject matters that you've told us about so far, do you still train on these subject matters?
Yes, everything except the child's portion of it.
Okay.
We have trainers in our unit that are specific to child's.
Okay, so that's more of a specialized training now.
Well, not now. It's always been just the way that we organize our units is there's people who are specific to sort of the general classroom, and then people who train specific to the computer program.
I got it. Okay. When did that change happen? The change from childs being included. God, I hate these chairs. When did that changeover happen from you as part of your general duties providing training for childs to somebody specialized in childs providing that training?
So it was always that way. It's just I switched positions within CWTI from child's trainer to classroom trainer in
I gotcha.
2015.
I got you.
I just
Okay.
took on a new challenge.
I got it. So it's not like some special thing happened and everything changed.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, we left off at childs. Are there any other subject matters that you train on besides the ones that you've already provided me?
Not that I can recall at the moment.
Okay. Going back to the top of the list, the introductory course. What is the population that you would be administering that course to?
That would be new employees who are hired as child safety specialists.
And is it the same training for all new hires, regardless of which particular unit they're going to be working in?
All new safety specialists, yes, whether they're investigations or ongoing or some other specialized unit.
Okay. This is the first time I've heard that term is safety specialists. And it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like under the rubric of safety specialist, we have a whole bunch of specific units, one being the investigations unit, one being the ongoing services unit, and what I think you said some others. What were
There's specialized units as well. So the ICWA, Indian Child Welfare Act unit, adoptions, young adult program units. We have foster home and group home investigations,
Okay.
in-home units.
Is that
I'm
pretty
sure
much-
I'm forgetting someone.
That's probably enough of a list for the
Okay.
moment anyway. So all of these different units, though, fall under the general umbrella of safety specialists.
Correct.
Okay, and they all get the same introductory training.
Correct.
Okay, just generally, just give me sort of an overview of the introductory training. What sort of things do they get taught there?
So it truly is an introduction. We introduce ourselves as trainers, and they introduce themselves. There's a very, very brief child welfare history, meaning 20 to 30 minutes. We talk about the department's mission and values, and a sort of a generalized overview of family-centered practice. We go over housekeeping, where are the restrooms, what to do if there's a fire drill,
Okay.
when is lunch.
Okay, those important things.
Right.
About how long does that introductory training session, about how long does that typically
It's about
last?
3.5 hours.
3.5 hours. Okay, so setting aside like winter breaks, where's the bathroom, when's lunch, those sorts of things, how much time is devoted to substantive matters?
Approximately 2 hours.
And those substantive matters would be the agency mission and values would be among those, right?
Correct.
And then family-centered practice.
Correct.
Anything else?
No.
Okay. So you basically spend about 2 hours on the mission, values, and family-centered practice.
Just as an introduction to those
Right.
concepts. Right.
Right. Is that done by PowerPoint, or is it just somebody up on a lectern lecturing a crowd?
PowerPoint in conjunction with me lecturing.
Okay. Did you bring any of your training materials here with you today?
I did not.
Okay. I'm going to show you Exhibit A. It's been previously marked. It's right there. And I'll ask you, have you seen that document before?
Yes.
Okay, when's the last time you saw this document?
Wednesday. Well, I think it's the one I saw on Wednesday.
Have you seen another one that looks similar?
Yes.
Do you know what that was?
So I saw something similar to it on Wednesday
Okay.
about me coming here today.
Okay. Prior to when, and that's Wednesday this week?
Correct.
Okay. Prior to Wednesday this week, have you ever seen this document before?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall, just roughly, an estimate's fine, when it was?
Oh gosh. Several months ago.
Okay. And if I can get you to turn to internal page number 16. And it's the page titled Request for Production. Mm-hmm. Are you there?
Yes.
You see there's a list of different classifications or categories of documents there, and it continues from page 16 all the way through page 20.
Mm-hmm.
And the first, you see that there, right?
Yes.
The very first one on page 16 says any and all documents that were reviewed by, and I'm going to sort of truncate this because it's a lot of words, it essentially means you. So any and all documents that were reviewed by you in preparation for this deposition. Did you read that when you first received this document?
Yes.
Okay. Did you bring any documents with you responsive to that request?
No, because I did not review anything.
You reviewed nothing?
Correct. I've had the stomach flu for the last 2 days. So I've actually been at home quite ill,
Oh.
which is why I'm not exactly energetic today.
All right, now I get it. In fact, I probably should have asked you that at the very outset. I normally don't go through all the admonitions and stuff because it wastes a lot of time. But I will ask you now, since you've raised the issue, are you feeling okay or well enough to provide your best testimony here today?
I think I can still do a good job, yes, or I wouldn't be here.
If at any point in time as we're going through the day you start not feeling so great, whether it's lightheaded, stomach issues, whatever, let us know that, because what I don't want to do is have you struggle through the day and then we end up having to come back and do this all over again because you weren't able to give your best testimony. Do you understand that?
Yes.
And will you promise me that you will let us know if you're having trouble?
Yes.
Okay. What did you do, if anything, to prepare yourself to testify today as the voice of your agency, as the person most knowledgeable within your agency with respect to the training that's provided to agency employees?
I met with Jim on Wednesday afternoon. Or I'm sorry, it was Tuesday afternoon.
Okay, I'm not going to ask you about the substance of any of those conversations because that would be attorney-client privilege, and I'm not entitled to know what you guys talked about. Did you meet with them though more than once?
No.
Okay. About how long was that meeting?
Maybe 45 minutes to an hour.
Did you review any documents in that meeting?
The one that looks similar to this.
Okay, and this being Exhibit A?
Correct.
Okay, any other training documents, policies, procedures, anything like that?
No.
Okay. Other than meeting with Mr. Bowen for about 45 minutes to an hour on Tuesday this week, did you do anything else to prepare yourself to come in and testify today on behalf of your agency as the voice of your agency?
No.
Okay. Going back to your introductory course that you provide to new employees, you said that part of that was administered through a PowerPoint presentation.
Correct.
What is that PowerPoint presentation called, or what would I need to call it if I were to send you one of these document requests saying, provide me a copy of the PowerPoint that you give to your workers in the intro class? What would I call that document so that you would know exactly what I'm looking for when I ask to produce it?
The day one introduction for new employee core.
So that's part of the core training?
Correct.
Okay. And in the introductory training, you said that you go over with the new hires the mission and values of the agency.
Correct.
Okay. How many times have you given that intro course?
At least once a month for the last 2 years.
Wow. Okay. So at least like 24 times.
Correct.
Okay. So you feel comfortable that just in your mind you have a pretty firm recollection of what it is that you train these people?
I think so, yes.
Okay. What do you train them is the mission of the agency?
That our mission is to ensure child safety, permanency, and well-being while remaining child-centered and family-focused.
What does family-focused mean?
That obviously to us, child safety is paramount, but to the furthest extent possible, we want to include the family in any and all decisions, and utilize their strengths and the good things that they have going for them as part of the ways that we help to ensure safety of the children. That's a fundamental key of it.
Okay, so safety of the children is the focus.
Correct.
Okay, and when you say include the family as much as possible, what do you mean? And when you say include the family as much as possible, what do you mean?
That it's every situation is different, so the extent that they are able to be involved is different. I mean, across a broad spectrum, but it's really part of our values that we include the family and their strengths, not just biological parents, but kin and fictive kin, meaning those who act like relatives, significant other relationships, that we include them in decisions and utilize their strengths for making decisions and building plans to keep kids safe.
And who makes the decision whether or not it's possible? Because you said you do that as much as possible. Who makes the decision about whether or not it's possible to include the family in decisions that your agency makes for the child?
So that typically is the specialist and their supervisor.
And when you say the specialist and their supervisor, that would be, for example, with an investigations unit, that would be the investigator and the investigator supervisor.
Correct, in that unit, but
Okay.
in any unit really, that whoever that is and their supervisor.
Do you train the workers in this introductory course anything at all about the constitutional rights that run between parents and children?
No.
Do you train your workers, any of these safety workers, investigators, adoptions, ongoing workers, in-home workers, do you train any of the list of workers that you provided me earlier, anything at all with respect to the constitutional rights that run between parents and children?
No.
Okay. And that's for any training, not just the introductory training, right?
Correct.
Do you know whether or not there are, in fact, constitutional rights that run between parents and children?
I can't say for certain.
Because you've never been trained on that either, right?
Correct.
Okay. For example, have you ever, and you may have learned this in your education, your bachelor's or your master's, or even the current course study. Have you ever learned that parents and children have a constitutional right to live together without government interference, absent a few exceptions, one of which would be emergency?
No,
You've never heard that?
we don't. I've never covered the Constitution in any of my educational courses.
Okay. And you've never heard in your, how many years was it? I wrote it down and I've forgotten. How many years you've been with the agency?
11, a little over 11.
11. I actually didn't write it down. I'd have to do the math. I'm a lawyer, not a mathematician. So 11 years. In your 11 years with the agency, you've never heard in any context, whether it be training, mentoring, informally, you've never heard that parents and children have a right, a constitutional right, to live together without government interference, subject to a couple of exceptions, one of which would be an emergency, to ameliorate an emergency. You've never heard that?
I've never covered the Constitution in any of the trainings that I've attended.
Well, let me ask it this way. We'll just take the Constitution out of the equation. Have you ever come to understand in any manner that parents and children have a fundamental right to live together without governmental oversight or interference in the absence of an emergency?
No.
Or something similar to that?
No, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't say so.
Have you ever heard or learned that fit parents are presumed to act in the best interests of their children?
Yes.
Okay, you have heard that. In what context?
In talking about children and parents and that relationship that that we believe parents typically act in the best interest of their children, that parents don't have kids to have people, I mean, excluding, I'm sure, a few
Crazies or whatever.
right, very
Right.
sick people out there, but people don't have children to be mean to them, that they have them out of love and want the best things for their kids.
Okay. And when you say that's typically the case, I guess where I'm having a little bit of confusion is the presumption. Do you train your social workers that there is actually a presumption, not just that typically parents are good people, but that there is a presumption that fit parents are going to always act in the best interest of their child? Is that what you train your people?
I wouldn't say always, but that we would assume that parents want to act in the best interest of their children. I would say yes.
Okay, do you have any understanding of what is meant by that phrase? There is a presumption that parents, fit parents, always act in the best interest of their children. Do you have an understanding of what that means?
Yes, but I wouldn't say always. I wouldn't.
Okay. You would agree with me, wouldn't you, especially I think as a trainer, that it is important for the workers that you train to have an understanding, at least a rudimentary understanding, of the law that governs the work they do, right?
As far as policy goes, yes.
I'm not sure I understand what that means. What do you mean?
It's that I think as a trainer, it's my job to teach them policy, not law.
Okay, so if there's a specific statute or rule of law or something that restricts the ability of your workers to do something, it's not your job to train them on that, it's somebody else's job to create a policy on that.
Correct.
Okay, and then you would train on the policy.
Correct.
So if there was a problem with a policy, a legal problem with a policy or the way the policy was implemented, that wouldn't be something that's your responsibility to address as a trainer.
Correct.
Okay. Now this, we've talked about the mission of the agency that you teach your workers in that intro course. What about values? You said mission and values. What are the values that you're talking about there?
That relates back to, again, child-centered practice and being family-focused. We talk about, and again, these are all very educational or introductory, and then flesh the concepts out throughout the remainder of their training. But the need to be professional and ethical, the need to involve the community, to be culturally competent,
What does that mean?
To recognize and utilize an individual's culture as part of the decision-making process.
Okay. Anything else?
Essentially, that's it.
Okay. When we're talking about involving the community, do you mean involving the community in like decisions that the agency's making? Or what do you mean by that, I guess?
That the community is our partners in as far as ensuring safety of the family, that we have stakeholders in the community and really individuals have strengths and resources in the community that we can tap into and utilize. So for example, someone might be very connected to their church, and that's a resource in the community that we can utilize in helping to keep kids safe.
Okay. So that sort of tie in with that whole "it takes a village" concept?
Exactly.
Okay. And your agency adheres to that "it takes a village to raise a child" concept?
In a way, yes, more or less.
And that's part of the values or mission of your agency?
Yes.
Is that it takes a village to raise a child?
Not officially, but yes.
Okay. It'd be like a customary type approach. That, yeah, it takes a village to raise a family
Correct.
or raise a child.
Yes.
Okay. Do you know whether or not that concept of public involvement in family affairs is addressed in any way in federal law?
I know as far as disclosure, we wouldn't go out and seek. We wouldn't just tell somebody else's business that they have that we don't just disclose information without somebody's permission.
Okay, so there might be some privacy concerns.
Correct.
Okay. What about other concerns? Anything besides privacy that might be implicated in this concept of it taking a village to raise a child that you know of?
No, I mean, you've simplified much more than what it is, but I think not really. I mean, the family drives who is their village.
Okay.
It's not up to me to define who the family's village is. It's up to them.
Okay. And then this ethical, you said that you, as part of this value statement, that ethics sort of plays into that. How?
Well, there is a separate module for ethics, but we have to be cognizant of that we are a government official and working with somebody, and the need to act professional because of that, as far as maintaining professionalism, not crossing boundaries into dual or multiple relationships with clients.
Being honest.
Correct.
Okay. Truthful at all times.
Yes.
In fact, honest in fact in everything that your workers do in the course of their work. They should not only appear to be honest, but they should be honest.
Yes.
And one of the reasons for that, not the only reason, but one of the reasons for that is because your agency holds a public trust.
Correct.
And you teach your workers that.
Yes.
And that to maintain that public trust, the workers have to adhere to strict guidelines and standards of ethics. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And when they don't, the public trust is undermined, right?
Yes.
And your agency loses credibility in the community.
Yes.
Okay. And you teach your workers that.
Yes, I do.
Is that in the introductory course, or is it something that's first introduced and then you actually have specific training modules on that?
Correct. It's introduced in the introductory portion, and then there is a specific module component of ethics.
Okay.
But obviously it's talked about throughout.
Right.
Professionalism isn't just a one-time discussion.
Now, the mission and values that you introduce in that initial course, is that something that's included in a sort of comprehensive PowerPoint package, or does it have its own little package, own PowerPoint?
It's included in the introductory
Okay.
component.
And then you said, you used a couple different terms, and it caused me a little bit of confusion. You said that you spend the 2 hours on mission, values, and family-centered practice, but then you came back and said child-centered practice. So I'm wondering, is there a distinction between child-centered practice and family-centered practice?
Well, we try to remain family-focused. Family-centered practice is sort of a larger social work term, and then just is used by our department. I think it would be recognized by any social worker as far as that terminology goes, or anybody in a related social and behavioral sciences field. We are child-centered in that our responsibility is the safety of the child. So our decisions, that's paramount. We can't compromise on child safety.
Okay. Well, let me ask to make sure I'm understanding. You do understand that parents and children both have rights to stay together with each other, right? Absent government, or without government interference, absent some sort of emergent circumstances. You understand that, right?
Right, you can't just come take somebody's kid because
Right.
you feel like it. Yes,
Right. And you train your workers that you can't just come take somebody's kid because you feel like it,
correct.
or because you're angry at the parent,
Yes,
or because somehow you feel like the parent has not treated you with enough respect.
correct.
Okay. Do you teach your workers that as part of their duties, their responsibilities, they have an obligation to ensure that they do not violate either the parents' rights or the children's rights in the disposition of their duties?
We teach them not to violate policy.
Okay, you don't teach them anything about the rights of the parents or children involved.
Well, just insofar as what's in policy.
Okay. Do you train on a specific policy that says that fit parents are presumed to act in the best interest of their children?
No.
Do you train on a policy that says a social worker may not remove a child from the custody of its parents without first obtaining a warrant unless the social worker at the time of the removal of the child is in possession of specific articulable facts to show that the child is in immediate danger of suffering severe bodily injury or death in the time it would take to get a warrant, and there is no lesser intrusive alternative means of protecting the child other than removal?
No.
Okay. Is there a reason why not?
I don't believe that exists in our policy.
Okay. And if it's not in your policy, you don't train it?
Correct.
Okay. I think you've described for me what is meant by child-centered practice, but I don't really have yet a clear understanding of what is meant by family-centered practice. Can you explain that for me?
Sure. Family-centered practice, and again, this is sort of the 5-cent version of family-centered practice,
Right.
is realizing that families are unique systems of individuals. Systems might not be the right word, but I can't think of a better word right now. That each family comes to us and exists even without us with their own strengths and challenges, and that our job is to engage the family to understand who they are specifically and what their own unique needs and strengths are, and using those to help the family make the best decisions possible for the safety of their children, and help to build any capacities they have so that they remain or can become successful and healthy families. It's really a strength-based, strength-driven practice.
Okay. And as part of this introductory course, do you cover both this concept of child-centered practice and family-centered practice?
Yes.
Okay. And just to make sure I'm understanding you correctly, at least in the view of your agency, under this concept of child-centered practice, what you're focusing on ultimately is the safety of the child.
Correct.
Now, how does that interplay with family-centered practice? This concept of working with the family to ensure child safety?
Sure. That there are families that, even looking at them as a complete picture, there are times in families' lives or specific family, if you take conditions along with circumstances, that Maybe they are not able to ensure the safety of their children without intervention. Intervention meaning support from us. And then intervention takes a broad spectrum of what intervention looks like. I mean, there's a wider range of what that would look like as far as intervention goes, but there might be specific conditions and circumstances that someone would require intervention to help ensure the safety of their child.
And who is it that decides, makes the decision whether or not a particular family needs government intervention?
Well, deciding if they needed further intervention would be the specialist and the supervisor.
Okay. Well, who makes the initial decision regarding whether or not a particular family needs any government intervention at all?
So that would be our hotline, who fields the calls through the child abuse hotline for the state of Arizona, and they make a determination if a call warrants an investigation or not.
Okay, so the initial determination as to whether or not an investigation is warranted is made at the hotline.
Correct.
Okay, that's not necessarily an intervention, though, in the operation of the family, is it?
Correct.
Okay, it would just be initiating an investigation.
Correct.
So, make sure I'm clear, what happens is the hotline actually receives reports of allegations, and then the hotline will determine whether or not the allegations are sufficient to warrant further investigation?
Yes, if we need to respond to by an investigation, or if it would just get listed in our system as a phone call. Every phone call gets documented. But
okay. You've heard of this concept, haven't you, that people accused are presumed under the law to be innocent until they're proven guilty, right?
yes, I've heard of that.
Yeah. Do you teach your social workers that? Or rather all of these people, I don't know if they're social workers or not, some are, some aren't, but all of these lists of different unit employees that you train, the investigations unit, adoption unit, ongoing workers, do you teach them that people are presumed innocent until they're proven guilty?
We don't use that terminology, but essentially the same concept.
Okay. So just because allegations came in from the hotline, that doesn't mean that the parent's guilty of doing whatever they're accused of doing, right?
Correct.
And part of the job of the investigator, once they receive that hotline report, is to go out and investigate to see whether or not, there's real evidence to show that, yeah, this parent did do what they're accused of doing.
Yes.
And only if there's evidence to show that, yeah, this parent did do what they're accused of doing, only then is it appropriate to intervene in that family, right?
Right. Well, if we go out and respond and there's a need for further intervention based on an assessment, then that's when we would make that determination.
That's where I'm having trouble understanding. You have to do an investigation of some sort.
Correct.
Hold on.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, because remember, she's trying to type everything down, and if we're back and forth, then it gets difficult for her. I do the same thing. Sometimes if I do, I'll try not. I'll try to be cognizant of it. But sometimes it happens. But this is where I'm having a little bit of trouble, is we get a referral from the hotline, right, with some allegations.
Yes.
Okay. We know that the person that's the target of the allegations is presumed innocent until there's some evidence to show that they actually did it, right?
Yes.
We accumulate evidence to show they either did what they're accused of or didn't do what they're accused of by doing an investigation, right?
Yes.
And that's where the investigator comes in. They get the hotline referral, they go out, do an investigation, correct?
Yes.
And that investigation, I think according to your ethics training, is supposed to be fair, impartial, unbiased, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and you teach your social workers or your investigators that in the disposition of their duties, including their investigations and assessments, they're required to be fair, unbiased, and impartial, right?
Yes.
Okay. Why is it important that an investigator be fair, unbiased, and impartial when they're, interacting with parents?
Because we shouldn't be allowing our own personal feelings or beliefs to influence decisions that we make. Our decisions should be made based on policy and procedure and not on our own specific values or belief systems.
Why is that important, though?
I mean, I think that goes along with cultural competency. That's also an ethic of the NASW, National Association of Social Workers, which part of our code of ethics is to adhere to their code of ethics.
Is that written up in policy somewhere? Is it part of the requirements of the workers that work for your agency be familiar with and adhere to the NASW code of ethics?
I know it's in our new employee training. I don't know if it's specifically in policy or procedure.
And do you actually provide your employees the code of ethics for the NASW? I presume that's in a little booklet form?
I don't know specifically how it's given. I know they're given it, and that's part of, they have a checklist that they're supposed to complete, and that's part of it, is reviewing that with their supervisor.
Okay. And do you teach these new workers anything about the discipline that they may be subject to if they do not adhere to the NASW code of ethics?
No, I do not.
Okay. Do you know, as a trainer, whether or not any of the agency's workers could be subject to discipline within the agency if they do not adhere to the NASW code of ethics?
I would assume so.
Okay, but you don't know.
Well, I mean, any job, if you don't follow what you're supposed to do at your work, that's a reason for disciplinary, but I'm not in charge of disciplinary, so I couldn't say for certain.
Okay, but you certainly do not train your students that if they do not adhere to the NASW code of ethics, they could be subject to discipline. You don't train them that.
Well, yes, I suppose I do.
You do train them that.
It's important and a part of their job to follow that, yes.
I understand that. You've answered that question earlier, that it's important and part of their job that they follow the NASW code of ethics. But my question's more specific than that. Do you teach them that if they do not follow the NASW code of ethics, they could be subject to discipline by the agency? Do you teach them that?
So no.
Okay. Is there a reason why you do not teach them that?
I don't train anything in regards to discipline.
Okay, is that somebody else?
Yes, but I couldn't say who.
Okay. But there is a trainer that actually teaches the workers about what may or may not subject them to discipline in terms of conduct?
I don't know where it gets specifically covered, so I don't know if it gets covered as part of pre-service training or if it gets covered as part of what their supervisor goes over with them. I couldn't say for certain where that specifically is covered.
Okay. Or if it's covered.
I mean, I know it was covered because I vaguely remember it once upon a time, but I don't remember where specifically it came from.
That vague memory that you have once upon a time about this training, about how workers may be disciplined if they do not adhere to the NASW code of ethics, what's your vague recollection?
That I was told to follow policy and procedure.
Yeah, but the NASW code of ethics is not verbatim reproduced in policy and procedure, is it?
No, not that I'm recalling. I can't say for certain.
Right. And within the text of policy and procedure, in fact, they don't say anywhere you must adhere to the NASW code of ethics, do they?
I can't say for certain.
Okay. It's just your training that you give to your students where you teach them that they should be adhering to the NASW code of ethics, right?
That's what I know for certain, yes.
Okay. So going back to this concept about how the investigators should be